A winter blackout isn't scary because it's dramatic. It's scary because it's quiet. The temperature drops, your body burns through energy, and small mistakes snowball fast. I'm going to show you 15 overlooked items that can make the difference between a miserable night and a dangerous one, especially when stores run out. Number 1, the real wool blanket. A winter blackout doesn't usually feel dangerous at first. It starts as the heat's off and the house is getting chilly. And then a few hours later, you're wearing every hoodie you own and still can't stop shivering. Cold-related deaths in the US are not rare, and what makes them scary is how normal the situation can look at the beginning. That's why a real 100% wool blanket is such a big deal. Not a wool blend throw meant for a couch photo, but an actual wool blanket that's heavy, dense, and built to trap heat. Wool keeps insulating even when it's a little damp from condensation or sweat, and it's naturally more resistant to sparks than a lot of synthetic fabrics. In a blackout, that matters because people start improvising and accidents happen. The easiest way to think about wool is this. It's quiet insurance. You're not doing anything fancy with it. You're just giving your body a better chance to hold on to the heat it already makes. If you find one that's itchy, put a thin sheet between your skin and the wool, and you still get the warmth. And once you've got one solid wool blanket, the next forgotten item is all about reflecting heat back to you, instead of letting it drift away. Number 2, a tough mylar bivy. Most people have seen those shiny emergency blankets and assumed they're all the same. They're not. The super thin ones can tear if you look at them wrong. And in a real blackout, you want something you can actually rely on. A tougher mylar bivy, basically a heat-reflective emergency sleeping sack, works because your body constantly gives off heat, and reflective material bounces a lot of that warmth back toward you. It's one of the few warmth tools that doesn't depend on electricity, fuel, or batteries. The key is to treat it like a heat mirror, not a plastic bag. You don't want anything sealed around your face, and you don't want to trap moisture so badly that you end up damp and colder later. Used the smart way, it can boost comfort fast, especially when you're sitting still. It's also the kind of thing that vanishes from shelves right before major storms because it's cheap and easy to grab in a panic. Keep one where you sleep and one in your car because a blackout and a winter traffic mess love to show up together. And if you want the mylar to work even better, you need something people almost never think about. What's under you? Number 3, the foam sleeping pad. Here's a mistake that catches a lot of people off guard. They pile blankets on top of themselves, but they're lying on a mattress that's losing heat to a cold floor. Or they're sitting on a couch with cold air pooling underneath. Your body doesn't just lose heat to the air, it loses heat by direct contact with cold surfaces. A basic closed-cell foam sleeping pad is a boring item that can feel wildly unboring when the temperature drops. It's light, it doesn't pop like an inflatable pad, it still works if it gets a little wet, and it creates a real barrier between you and whatever is stealing warmth. If you're trying to sleep through a freezing night, insulation under your torso is often the difference between "I'm uncomfortable" and "I can't get warm no matter what." You can also cut a cheap foam pad into smaller pieces for sitting, kneeling, or lining a drafty spot. It's not glamorous, but neither is shivering at 3 a.m. Once you've stopped the heat drain underneath you, the next thing is stopping your home from leaking warmth through the biggest weak points, your windows. Number 4, window insulation film. Windows are basically giant holes in your home's heat defenses. Even good windows can feel like a cold wall when the heat is off. And in a blackout, you suddenly notice every draft you ignored all year. Clear window insulation film kits are one of those items people skip because they feel like a hassle, but they can make a room feel dramatically less icy by reducing drafts and heat loss. The best part is, you don't have to do the whole house. In a winter blackout, you're usually not trying to keep every room comfortable, you're trying to keep one room livable. Bedrooms and the room you'll spend the most time in matter first. If you don't have window film, even temporary solutions like covering the glass with clear plastic can cut down that cold radiating off the window feeling. This is the kind of stuff that disappears fast after the first storm warning, because it's cheap, it's lightweight, and everybody suddenly realizes they want it at the same time. After the windows, the next leaks are lower and sneakier right, where doors and outlets quietly suck warmth out of your warm room plan. Number 5. Draft stoppers and outlet seals. A winter blackout turns you into a human draft detector. You walk past a door and feel that little stream of cold air on your ankle, and suddenly you realize your house has been leaking heat for years. Door draft stoppers. Those long fabric tubes you shove at the base of a door are easy to ignore until you actually need them. The same goes for simple outlet and switch plate foam gaskets on exterior walls. They're small, they're cheap, and they can cut down on that constant cold seep that makes a room impossible to warm up. In a pinch, a rolled towel works as a draft blocker, but having the real thing ready means you're not scavenging in the dark while your fingers go numb. This is also where weather stripping earns its keep, especially around doors that kind of close, but not tightly. People love to spend big money on emergency gear and skip the $10 fixes that make everything else work better. Once you've reduced the leaks, the next step is boosting your room's heat retention even more by reflecting warmth back into the space instead of letting it get swallowed by cold walls and glass. Number 6. Reflective insulation roll. There's a reason people use reflective sunshades in cars. They work. The same idea applies indoors during a blackout. A reflective insulation roll, or reflective foam board, can act like a heat mirror for your living space. You can place it behind heavy curtains at night, set it near the coldest wall area, or use it to create a more protected corner where you sleep or sit. Think of it as turning a big cold surface into something that pushes warmth back toward you, instead of absorbing it. This matters because in a blackout, you're usually running on a limited heat budget, meaning every bit of warmth you make. Through movement, through blankets, through body heat needs to stay close. A reflective layer can also make your warm room feel less harsh, especially if you're near windows. It's lightweight, it stores easily, and it's one of those weird items that people don't think of as survival gear until they're actually cold. And while we're talking about the things people forget, the next item isn't about comfort at all. It's about not getting taken out by a danger you can't see or smell. Number 7. A battery CO detector. Carbon monoxide is the blackout danger that ruins people's judgment because it's invisible and it makes you feel sleepy, not panicked. During winter outages, people start using whatever they can to just warm the place up. And that's when carbon monoxide poisonings spike, especially if someone uses fuel-burning equipment the wrong way. A battery-powered carbon monoxide detector, or a battery backup model, is one of the smartest, boring purchases you can make because it keeps working when the power is out. The CDC warns that carbon monoxide is odorless and deadly, and it kills hundreds of Americans each year. In other words, it's not rare, and it doesn't care if you're tough, prepared, or just doing it for a minute. The 2021 Texas winter storm is a brutal example of how quickly things can go sideways in a prolonged cold outage. Hypothermia and carbon monoxide were both major factors in storm-related deaths. A CO detector doesn't create warmth, but it protects your ability to stay alive and think clearly while you're trying to get through the night. Right after that, there's another basic safety item that people forget until they need it, because blackouts change the fire risk in a home fast. Number 8. Smoke alarms and a small extinguisher. In a winter blackout, people light more things, move more things, and improvise more things. That's a polite way of saying the chance of a house fire goes up when the lights are out and everyone's stressed. Working smoke alarms matter all the time, but they matter even more when you're using flashlights, moving around unfamiliar dark spaces, and trying to do normal tasks with less visibility. A small, easy-to-reach home fire extinguisher is another item that gets skipped because people assume that won't happen to me. The problem is that emergencies don't send invitations. If a small fire starts, the difference between handled quickly and full-on disaster can be seconds. So the best setup is simple. Make sure your smoke alarms actually work, and keep a basic extinguisher where you can grab it without digging through a closet. It's not dramatic, but it's the kind of preparation that protects your home, your pets, and your exit route if things go bad. And once the safety basics are covered, you need something else that prevents a different kind of emergency: injuries from moving around in the dark. Number 9. A headlamp and a real lantern. The classic blackout image is someone holding a phone flashlight under their chin like they're telling a ghost story. That's funny for about 10 seconds, and then it becomes a problem, because you need your hands. A headlamp is one of the most useful items in any outage, especially a winter outage, because it lets you cook simple food, carry water, help someone upstairs, or handle a pet without juggling a light source. Pair that with a lantern that lights up a whole room, and you reduce the chance of falls, cuts, and accidents that suddenly become way more serious when roads are icy and help is slower. A big detail people forget: batteries don't love the cold. In winter, keep spare batteries in a place that stays warmer, like a drawer in your main room, rather than a freezing garage. And if you're using rechargeable lights, make it a habit to top them off before storm season. This isn't about comfort. In a blackout, staying uninjured is part of staying alive. Now, lighting solves movement problems, but it doesn't solve the "my phone is dying and I can't call anyone" problem. That's where the next item earns its spot. Number 10. A power bank. You don't save for later. A lot of people own a power bank. The issue is, it's usually half charged, buried in a drawer, and paired with a cable that vanished into another dimension. In a winter blackout, your phone becomes your map, your weather alert system, your flashlight backup, and your way to contact people. A solid power bank charged and stored with the right cable buys you options. And the real trick isn't having one, it's using it intelligently. Cold drains phone batteries faster, so keep your phone closer to your body instead of leaving it on a cold windowsill. Switch to low power mode. Lower the screen brightness, and when you don't need constant updates, use airplane mode and check in periodically. Texting often goes through when calls don't, and it uses less power. This isn't prepper fantasy, it's basic outage math. If you can keep communication alive, you can make smarter decisions. And speaking of smarter decisions, there's one item that helps you stop guessing about how bad the cold is getting. Because guessing wrong is how people stay too long in unsafe conditions. Number 11. A simple indoor thermometer. People underestimate cold indoors because it creeps. You feel chilly, you put on socks, you grab a blanket, and you tell yourself you're fine. But the body doesn't care about your optimism. It cares about actual temperature and time. A basic indoor thermometer lets you stop guessing. This matters a lot for older adults, but honestly it matters for everyone, because cold slows you down mentally and physically. The National Institute on Aging warns that even indoor temperatures in the 60 to 65 degree enough range can lead to hypothermia in older adults. And the World Health Organization has pointed to 18 degrees Celsius, about 64 degrees Celsius, as a minimum safe indoor temperature for general populations in colder seasons. Having a thermometer lets you set a simple rule. If the temperature is dropping and you're getting colder, you act sooner instead of later. That might mean everyone moves into one room, adds layers, and stays together. It might mean checking on a neighbor. It might mean deciding to go somewhere warmer before roads get worse. The point is, you don't want to wait until you're shaking and foggy-headed to realize the house is unsafe. And once you're tracking temperature, the next thing people forget is just as basic. Water, because winter blackouts mess with that too. Number 12. Water containers that won't crack or freeze solid. Everyone talks about food in emergencies, but water quietly runs the whole show. In a winter blackout, pipes can freeze, boil advisories can happen, and suddenly you're melting ice from a cooler like it's a survival movie. The forgotten item here is having a few sturdy water containers that can handle cold conditions. Ideally several smaller ones instead of one huge container, because smaller containers are easier to move, share, and keep from freezing completely. Another smart move is keeping some water inside your main living space, not all of it in a cold garage where it turns into a block. And don't overlook the everyday benefit. Having water ready makes it easier to eat, take meds, and stay hydrated without doing risky trips outside on ice. If you want your blackout plan to feel less chaotic, water is where you start. Now, once water is handled, food becomes simpler too. But only if you have the one tool people always forget: until they're staring at a can in the dark. Number 13, the manual can opener. This is one of those items that sounds almost silly until you don't have it. A manual can opener is pure practical survival, because in a blackout, you want food that's safe, familiar, and requires zero cooking. Canned soup, beans, chili, tuna, fruit. These are boring in normal life and incredibly valuable when you're cold and stressed. Without a can opener, a pantry full of food can turn into a frustration pile. The other forgotten part is choosing blackout-friendly calories. Foods you can eat cold, foods that don't require a blender or microwave, foods that don't need fancy preparation, peanut butter, nuts, shelf-stable protein, crackers, simple stuff that keeps your energy up. And in the cold, energy matters, because your body burns more to stay warm. Also, if anyone in the house has daily meds, pairing this section with easy-to-swallow foods and plenty of water is a small detail that can prevent a big problem. Once food is manageable, you're still left with a blackout problem nobody loves talking about. Getting around your home safely when it's dark and icy outside, especially if you have stairs. Number 14, stick-on motion lights and glow tape. Most blackout injuries aren't dramatic, they're the dumb ones. Tripping on a stair, slipping in a hallway, smacking your shin on furniture you normally avoid because the lights are on. In winter, those injuries can become a bigger deal because emergency services may be delayed, roads may be slick, and moving around outside is riskier. Battery-powered stick-on motion lights are an underrated fix. Put them in hallways, bathrooms, and near stairs, and suddenly you've reduced the chances of someone taking a hard fall while half asleep and cold. Glow-in-the-dark tape is another "why didn't I do this sooner" item. Mark the edge of steps, mark the location of a flashlight, mark the door latch. Tiny visual cues that make moving around safer when everything is black. It's also helpful if you're dealing with kids, pets, or older family members who get disoriented easily. The goal is to make your home idiot-proof in the dark, because when you're tired and stressed, everybody becomes a little more accident-prone. And once movement is safer, there's one last forgotten item that ties everything together when tech fails: having your key info on paper. Number 15, a paper emergency folder and small cash. Phones die, Wi-Fi dies, and sometimes cell service gets weird at exactly the moment you want it most. A simple paper folder can keep you from scrambling. Put in emergency contacts, local numbers, your address. Yes, people blank under stress. Medical info, a list of prescriptions, and any special instructions for family members. If you have kids, include school contacts. If you have pets, include vaccination info and your vet number. If someone has a medical device that depends on power, write down what you'd tell a dispatcher. This folder is also where small cash belongs, because during outages, card readers and ATMs can go down, and cash becomes the fastest way to solve a problem. None of this is exciting, but it's the kind of thing that prevents a cold, stressful night from turning into a long-term crisis. When you pair paper info with the warmth and safety items you already set up, you're not just enduring a winter blackout. You're staying functional, making calm decisions, and protecting the people who count on you.